with my lovely mother.
Hi, I'm Jeanette.
And today we're going to go over some, honestly, so I'm titling this 15 tips for a first-time Disney cruise, but honestly, these are going to be very random tips. So before I went on the Disney Wish back in May of 2025, and before I went on the Disney Wish, I listened to so many Disney podcasts, I watched so many Disney vlogs, was looking for all the tips and tricks for the park. And even when I got on the cruise, there were still a few things that no one really mentioned in their podcasts or their YouTube videos that I just wanted to put together a little list of things that I just noticed that when I was on the ship that I didn't really hear about before getting on the ship, so to speak. So I will say this isn't like an all-inclusive, like every single top tip that there is.
No, nobody can do all-inclusive.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's like a supplemental podcast to like other podcasts that are out there about the Disney Cruise Line or Disney Wish. And I will say some of these tips are kind of fun tips. Some of them are not that serious. But just things, again, I still just thought I would mention, and it ended up being 15 in number. I originally was just going to do 10 with like 5 bonus ones. But all right, so the first one, when we first arrived on, so some of this also, we have a whole episode 2 where I went over my whole recap of the trip as well. So some of these tips are also in the recap as well of that trip. So again, if you listen to that, some of them are going to be repeated, but other ones are going to be brand new. But I would definitely suggest listening to that episode because there's a lot of great stuff is talked about in my overall recap of the entire trip too. So yeah, so I went on the Disney Wish. It was a 4-day trip when we were on there. We went to Nassau in the Bahamas and Castaway Cay, again, on the Disney Wish. Now, when we first arrived, we took an Uber to Port Canaveral. And when we got out of the Uber, you give, your bags to the port person. And then when we walked around, I feel like there weren't that many signs of like what to do next, so to speak, like how to actually get on the ship. Now, Disney will send a lot of emails prior of like how to board, like what documents you need to board, all this stuff basically for boarding. So they will prep you all for that. It's very extensive, honestly, the things you can and cannot bring on the ship. That was all extensive. The one thing that I feel like I didn't really understand and that me, Shannon, and Tyler all didn't understand when we got there was that there was a woman who was standing there. There was a big crowd behind this woman and she was holding like a little sign, basically, just like literally like a little 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that said 12 o'clock. And that was our boarding time, was 12 o'clock. So the way that she was standing, we thought that that crowd of people that was kind of in like a group line, we thought those were the people waiting for the 12 o'clock boarding time. So we're like, okay, so we kind of got in the group and kind of got online. So we're staying there for a little bit. Now it's almost like 12:15, 12:16. And we're like, oh, maybe they're just running a little bit behind, whatever, like it is what it is. Then she flips the board from 12 p.m. to 12:15 p.m. And suddenly everyone around us start rushing forward to get on. I didn't even realize it was a line, but to get into like the little skinnier line, I guess, to start boarding essentially. And that's when we realized that sheet that the person is holding, that the cast member is holding, is the time that they are currently accepting to board the ship. Now, this may be obvious for a lot of people who have gone on cruises before, but it was not obvious for the three of us.
People were waiting for that 12.
And I will say too, I have not been on a cruise before. So again, other cruises may do the same thing, and this was just us being silly that we didn't know this. But we didn't know that though. So it said 12 o'clock. We went with the crowd. We're like, oh, whatever. It is what it is. Like we could have gotten on, a little bit sooner, but it's fine. And as we were going through the line, there's a few stops, I would say, that sort of like people check your tickets and everything and make sure you have your tickets, you have all your documents. And one woman, she saw that we were 12 o'clock and she was like, oh, you're 12 o'clock. Actually, you can board right now. So she actually had to skip another like part. It's kind of hard to explain, but she had to skip another part line and go straight up to where the security is. Now, I'll also note too, is that at this part, and this is like a bonus tip for this one, is that you do not need your passport or your identification until after you do the security. Because this whole time, we're all holding our passports physically in our hand this entire time, right? Because we don't know when they're going to be needed. We're like ready to show every cast member our passport. And they're like, no, you don't need it yet. You don't need it yet. But it's kind of like, if you have kids or something like that, you're traveling in a big group, I would say keep all the passports in one bag, ready to get when you need them. But it's not until after you go through security and then you're inside and then you actually check in for the ship, then that's when you actually take your passports out and they check all your passports and all that stuff when you're there. Because again, when we got to the security, it's kind of like airport security, but it's not as strict as airport security. Like you didn't have to take everything out of your bag. You didn't have to take your shoes off and stuff like that. But the biggest thing was like medals. So if you had certain medals, that was kind of the things that they were looking for. Like I had a celebration button on my shirt. I had to take that off because they were like, oh, that medal is going to make the security thing go off, for instance. So, but again, I was holding my passport. I was like, normally I keep my passport on an inside pocket of my backpack. I couldn't reach that pocket because my backpack was so stuffed with stuff that I was like, all right. So again, just kind of navigating, it's like that you don't need your passport or your documents until you get through that security at the very least. All right, my next tip. All right, so you will not see the ship's itinerary until you are actually on the ship or in the port. You need to connect to the Disney ship Wi-Fi, and that's when you see the itinerary. Now, Disney does tell you this beforehand, but I didn't really understand what that meant until I was actually on the ship. What that means is all that the day-by-day activities. So before you get on the ship, you just don't know the day-by-day activities. There are activities, and that's what I heard on every podcast. That's like there are activities at every hour of the day. Every 15 minutes, there's a new activity starting on the ship. But I didn't really understand what that meant because I couldn't see an itinerary anywhere on the app or anywhere online. And that's when I realized it's because because it's what Disney said. You don't see the itinerary until you are on the ship.
On the ship.
Now, I'm sure they do that because they don't know what the itinerary is going to be necessarily until you get on the ship, according to like whatever the cast member rotation may be or whatever's going on that specific cruise for that week. But I do think it was inconvenient in the sense that as soon as we got on the ship, now we're all just sitting on our phones looking at the itinerary for the next 4 days to like heart which things that we wanted to do. Now, there are ways you can Google in advance like example ship itineraries, and you can go through that and kind of get an idea of what's going to be on the ship. And I actually just recommend doing that just so you have an idea. So that way, once you're on the ship, then you can, you're not like seeing it for the first time.
On the itinerary.
Yeah. Right. So because for me, I was seeing all this for the very first time in my entire life, right? It's like I had no idea what activities were going to be available on the ship until I was sitting on the ship looking through this and being like, wow, there's so much to do and so much to see. You can also filter out some of these things too. So for instance, there are going to be some things that are only for teens or only for kids. So you can filter those out because some of the things I was hearting, I was just like some of the trivia, it was like a teen trivia only. I'm like, well, I didn't know that. So I can't go to the teen trivia only, of course, because I'm an adult. So you can filter those out too. But again, I just didn't know that. And I feel like not enough people really talked about that. All right, number 3, we get into our stateroom and I went to go sit down on the couch, and it is the hardest couch you'll ever sit down on your entire life. Do not plop down onto that couch like I did because it kind of hurt. I plopped down expecting it to be a real couch.
Underneath?
It is a bed. Okay. It's a fold out bed, like a twin size bed. That's what it folds out to. But yeah, the hardest couch I've ever sat on in my entire life. It is not plush at all. And I say this because some of the couches in Disney World are also pull out couches and they're still plush. Like they're still normal couches to sit on. This was not a normal couch. Yes, okay. It's very hard. Not a single person talked about that. So I'm just going to say, do not plop down onto that couch. It is not comfortable. To the point at one point, my friend Shannon was standing up and I told her, I was like, oh, do you want to sit down for this? She was like, honestly, no. She's like, it's not worth it to sit on that couch. It was so uncomfortable. But we actually used the Murphy bed, which is actually another tip I have on here, is that something I didn't know. Again, I think this is a cruise thing, but again, I just didn't know it because it was my first cruise. Was that your state attendant will come every morning to they do turn down and then I guess like morning service essentially. Right. They honestly come to your stateroom a lot. All things
they're always in and out of there.
So for instance, you get on the ship, he came over. We had Valentino, who's our stateroom attendant, and he asked us, it's like he knows, he obviously can see the itinerary. He knows that there's 3 adults in this room. So he said, do you want to use the pull-out couch or the Murphy bed? And we said the Murphy bed. And so every night then he would come for turn down service, usually when we were at dinner, because your dinner is, you have like, you pick your 2 dinner times. So he would usually come when we were at dinner and he would do the turn down service. So that's when they do the towel animal. They would kind of unset the main bed as well. And he would pull down the Murphy bed as well and like set the Murphy bed up. And then in the morning when we went to breakfast, he would come in, he would put the Murphy bed fully back up or reset the whole room. And then, when we came back into the room, the first time we saw that, we were just surprised because I thought the Murphy bed was just going to be down the entire time. Right. I didn't really think anything of it. But yeah, no, they do that every single day. And if you have bunk beds as well, they do that as well too. So they basically reset the room for you every day. Now, another tip I also heard on different podcasts, if you have kids, you can request Disney sheets for the beds. So if you get there, or you do need to get there early enough and talk to your attendant early enough because the sheets will run out. But if you have kids and you want like the Disney sheets, you can ask for Disney sheets and they will put like the fun sheets on the kids' beds if you want to, just to make it a little bit more magical. Okay. All right. So next up is that you can make dining reservations on the ship. I feel like before I heard a lot of people say you had to make them before you get on the ship because it's like impossible to get a dining reservation once you're, that's like the only time you can do it. But you can make reservations on the ship. You're just not guaranteed whenever you may want to eat. The specific thing we were looking for was to get a brunch reservation for Paolo. Those were all sold out, but we could get dining reservations for Paolo and Enchante if we wanted to on the ship as well. So we ended up not doing that. We actually did make a reservation, then we canceled it because we decided not to do it in the end. But you can do that on the ship. I just thought that was interesting. You do have to go to the restaurant and there'll be like a person just like kind of in the waiting room, so to speak. Yeah, but that is an option as well if you forgot to make your dining reservation before getting on the ship. All right, the cruise Wi-Fi. So there is cruise Wi-Fi that you can purchase once you're on the ship. You will purchase per device. So we decided to purchase for 2 devices. So we had 3 phones between the 3 of us and my laptop. So I guess 4 devices almost. So we purchased 2 devices because we thought at first we were like, well, let's get 2 in case we're separated. We could always text the other, so that way we could always get in touch with the other. Now there is free Wi-Fi on the ship and you actually don't need to purchase the Wi-Fi because the free Wi-Fi on the ship is enough Wi-Fi for the Disney Cruise app. So everyone on the ship can use the Disney Cruise app on the free Wi-Fi. And on the free Wi-Fi and in the app as well, there is a chat in the app.
Oh, so you can do that, right? Yeah,
so it's like, for instance, like I have, everyone's logged into their own account. Now I don't know how this would work if you had little kids maybe, because I don't think little kids may not have their own phones, of course. But if you had teens, this at least could work or something like that. Or even just other people in your party that, you can just message them on the app and you can actually message any person on the ship technically on this app. You just have to like add them as a friend basically on the app on the cruise ship app. So you can message them. So you have enough free Wi-Fi to do that. You also have enough actually to use iMessage on iPhones. So if you have an iPhone, we were able to use iMessage the entire time. And that's because iMessage isn't like a text message. It's just kind of like a Wi-Fi, like iChat sort of. Right. And so again, the free Wi-Fi is strong enough for iMessage iMessage on your iPhone. So we end up even never using the cruise app chat anyway, because we just use iMessage anyway. But yeah, but all that to say is that, yeah, the Wi-Fi, is worth it if you need to use Wi-Fi, because the Wi-Fi that you purchase is good for like, if you want to go on social media, for instance, if you want to like browse the web, do anything more, I would say, than other just like using iMessage, just using the Disney cruise app in itself. All right, next up is that when you get on this ship, Disney does have a mandatory emergency, like emergency run that they do with all of the guests.
Oh yeah, the safety check run.
Yes, and so before, when you're doing the safety check, they say there's a lot of announcements about the safety check, what's going to happen, what's going on, and they will say that the emergency alarm is very loud, and they say you should cover your ears if you're sensitive to loud noises. Now, I've never really been sensitive to loud noises in my entire life, but I will say this emergency alarm is much louder than I would say you probably expect it to be. It was very loud. Like, I was physically affected by it because it was just so loud, and it's hard to explain, but it was like, I think too, because you're in not a small room, I was in a really large room.
Space, yes.
Yeah, you're in a confined space, and it's just, again, I wasn't even in like an indoor room. Like, there were windows, I could see the outside.
It's not out in the hall. It's actually in every room, every stateroom and everything.
The emergency alarm for this one goes throughout all the rooms, but I was already in the area because essentially they have you meet in the area. Like, if there was an emergency, all of the guests have like a letter that you go to, like your letter. Right. And then, and the app tells you like, where is your drill area? Or again, if there was an emergency, where are you supposed to go for like the lifeboats essentially? So I was in group V and we went to the Marvel restaurant. So we went down to the Marvel restaurant, we get taken through, and then they see all the guests just at the different tables basically in the Marvel restaurant for this drill. They play the emergency alarm. Again, it is very loud. It's going to be much louder than I would say you probably would expect it to be. At least for me, it was much louder than I was expecting it to be. And they say it's going to be like 5 short blasts, then 2 long blasts or something like that. Like, they'll tell you up front what's going to happen. But I would suggest covering your ears, especially covering kids' ears, just because it is very loud and be very sensitive to kids' ears, especially. Honestly, I would even cover my own ears too. And later on the trip, when they were doing a drill with cast members, it was like when we were at the Bahamas, they were just doing like a practice drill for the cast members. The alarm had to go off again, and they again did the announcement, the alarm's going to go off, and I did cover my ears because I was in the bathroom and I was like, yeah, I can't do this. It was so loud last time. Yeah, and then for that drill too, again, there's TVs in the Marvel restaurant. At least I'm assuming there's TVs in other areas too. Not really sure actually how the other places did it, but they played a little video for us about like what we would do if there was an emergency, like how you put your life vest on, all this stuff. You don't have to bring your life vest with you. The life vests are all in your staterooms, but you're not required to bring it with you. And then again, you can try it on if you need to, though, in your stateroom, of course. And then when you're done with the drill, they release you by table or like by section, sort of. So like as soon as the TV was done, I like stood up and he was like, oh no, you need to sit down, because like our section wasn't leaving yet. So yeah, they release you by section essentially. And then once you're done with the drill, you're back to doing whatever you'd like to do. So and I will say too, it is mandatory, and they do check as well. They do a whole like head count to make sure everyone is there and make sure every stateroom is there as well. And if you are not there, your cast members will go looking for you. Like, they will go up to your stateroom to go looking for you.
They have to do that, God forbid.
Yeah, we had one stateroom in the end that they thought was not there, but it turns out it was there. It was like a family had 2 staterooms, so they only checked in under one stateroom and they didn't check in under the other stateroom that was like the kids' stateroom. And so then they realized that. So I guess that's good to say too. If you have 2 staterooms, like the kids are in their own stateroom, you need to check in for their stateroom
both,
too.
Let them know you're there, right.
Or else it'll just get a little confusing for the cast members. So all right, up next, this is so silly, but it was a shock to me the first time I went to the bathroom. The toilets flush like a vacuum. So it's just like
an airport.
Yeah, it's just like when you're in an airplane. So yeah, the toilets flush like a vacuum. The first time I flushed this toilet, it scared me. I was not expecting it. Not only does it flush like a vacuum, I was in Marceline Market, so I went to the restroom there. And when I flushed the toilet, there's like air that's beneath the toilet seat itself, where you feel the air coming out because it's like sucking the the toilet in. And it was just such a shock to me. I was so scared by it. And the thing is too, when you press the button to flush, you need to hold it for a second as well, because if you don't hold it, then it doesn't actually flush. And it's funny because there was a little girl who ended up going to the bathroom after me. She told her mom, she's like, oh, the toilet's not flushing. I said to her, oh, you need to like hold it for a second. And I told her it's going to be like a vacuum, so just be prepared.
The poor kid is going to jump.
Yeah, it was like kind of scary. I don't know, I wasn't expecting it. And all the toilets on the ship flushed like a vacuum. Just wasn't expecting it. It was just a bit shocking to me, I guess is all. I just thought it was kind of funny.
I didn't remember that.
I don't know if other cruises do it.
I don't remember that on our last
Perhaps other cruises don't do it, or they have different mechanisms for the toilets. But yeah, these toilets, at least on the Disney Wish, flush like a vacuum. Just wasn't expecting it. So, all right, when you were on, again, for a Disney Wish at least, when you're on the cruise, a lot of the food and beverage is included in your cruise price that you've already paid. And if there is something that is not included, it will have the price next to it. So that was something I wasn't sure about, just because I was curious once you got on the cruise, like what we would have to pay for. For instance, I knew alcoholic beverages, of course, were not included. I knew some of the snacks were not included. And basically, yeah, once you sit down in a place, if there is a number next to the item, that means you're going to be paying whatever that number is for the item, which makes it easier in the sense that things that are included are more obvious. So it's like just like anything that doesn't have a number next to it is going to be included in what you've already paid for the cruise. So the main things that are not included is alcoholic beverages. All of the lounges will have alcoholic beverages. If you're at one of the lounges and bars as well and you get a soda, you do pay for the soda as well. Now there is free soda on the ship, so I would suggest just go and get your own free soda and bring it in. Not a single person will stop you from bringing your own drink into the area as well. It's like open canister. You can bring any drink anywhere, honestly. It's like no one really says anything. But yeah, so you definitely get the free soda where you can. And then, you know, I have something about the free soda next, actually. Yeah. The water and soda machines are on deck 11. And again, they're available 24/7. So you can always get water and soda whenever you want. And I would just bring those wherever you're going, right? So, but yeah, and then also some of the snacks. So there's like the main little, like, it's a kind of so on my ship, it was the Inside Out Sweets shop. It was called Joyful Sweets. So they had like the gelatos and ice creams, like the hard ice creams, not the soft serve ice cream, that were flavored ice creams. They had other like cupcakes and cookies and other like, you know, marshmallow snacks and chocolate covered strawberries. And they also had some of the treats that you can buy in the parks, like the gummy bears and the, you know, the other gummy sweets and the hard candies you can buy in the parks were also sold in here too. Again, all of them had the prices next to it. So it's pretty clear, I would say, that it's like you're paying for these items. It's not included in your overall cruise price. So I did like that just because, again, I wasn't sure. And the one other cruise I went on when I was a child, they did one time serve my dad fresh squeezed orange juice. And then my dad was charged like $10 for fresh squeezed orange juice.
As soon as he drank it, they put a bill next to him.
And where there was free orange juice in this restaurant. So again, I would say Disney is not doing that at least. So it is a little bit more clear, at least on a Disney cruise, like what you're paying for and what's included in the cruise. So yeah, they're not too sneaky. Again, can't speak for other cruises though. So but it's just good to know, because again, I feel like that's what I was nervous for, was that there was going to be sneaky things like that.
Sneaky little,
and Disney at least didn't do that.
Even when we got on the ship and they were going around with the trays with the drinks on them, these beautiful drinks with the, you know.
Well, those were alcoholic beverages, so I could have seen those be costing
but they
money.
were going around just with the tray, like going to everybody, would you like one? Would you like one? Would you like one? But like you said, unless they're saying, would you like one for, and whatever it was going to cost.
For like $10 or something like that. So yeah, but again, Disney's not too sneaky, I would say, overall. So, which again is a good thing, because again, I was nervous about that. And again, if you're paying for something, there's going to be a price next to it, which I really appreciated. So when you get on the ship, you board on deck 3, but then when you get to the ports, you go to the ports on deck 1. We didn't know that. So when we got to the first port, we went back to deck 3 where we boarded the ship.
Jump off.
Now we're staying there being like, where are we supposed to go? Because the door wasn't open. And we all felt kind of silly. I will say, there were announcements who said deck 1 is when you get on and off the ship. There's like little TVs around the ship too with, you know, like maps and stuff like that. It said on the TVs, you get off the ship at deck 1. There was plenty of signage. We just didn't look for it. We were all just being little, you know, dummy dum-dums on our ship, just like on vacation. So yeah, we didn't see that. So yeah, we basically found out, you leave the ship at the ports on deck 1 and you get back on at deck 1 for the 2 ports. But when you leave the ship and get on the ship for like at the port for like at Port Carnaval or in the one in Fort Lauderdale, wherever you are, that's going to be on deck 3. So that's good to know, because again, I just didn't realize that, and we all felt really silly the first time, being like, well, there were plenty.
Where do we go?
Yeah, there were plenty of signs that told us to go to deck 1, and here we are on deck 3, being like, where are we supposed to go? So, all right, at dinner time, when you go to dinner, again, kind of going back to what I was saying before, if there's no price tag next to it, you're not paying for it, which means you can order actually as much food as you want at dinner. You can get 2 entrees. You can order every single dessert. You can order every single entree if you really want to, and they will bring you that food. They cannot stop you from ordering that food, even if you're not going to eat it, which I would say is a waste of food. So I would not suggest doing this, of course.
Never do that.
But at the same time, you can order that food if you want to try it. And we did do that. At one point, Tyler ordered 2 filet mignons because they were only like a 4-ounce filet mignon.
Yeah,
and he was like, that's kind of small. So he said, I'm just going to get 2 filet mignons. So he did, to make it an 8-ounce filet mignon. There were, on the last restaurant, there were 2 soups that both sounded kind of good. I just got both soups. So one of them ended up not being good, unfortunately, so I didn't eat it. But when the other soup tasted great. For desserts as well, a lot of people say you can order, so we all ordered our own dessert, but there was one place where we ordered, I ordered 2 desserts because we just want to taste all of the 4 options of desserts, because they all just sounded really good. And so that's what we did. So yeah, so if you get as much food as you want, which I think is a really great thing, they will not stop you from getting it. Of course, you don't want to waste food. But at the same time, though, it's like if you wanted to try more things out, I would say, you know, that's something you definitely can do. You can just order the food. You can share it as well. Of course, anything in Disney is pretty shareable. I'd also say as well, on this topic of food, when you order your food and drink, you order it all at once. I did not know this. So our first dinner was at Arendelle. And so of course, when we get to Arendelle, the entertainment kind of starts right away. And so I was sort of watching the entertainment. I didn't really look at the menu right away. So when the waitress came over and she took my appetizer order, she was like, what do you want for your entree? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I hadn't even looked at the entrees yet. And so then I realized I had to order my appetizer, entree, and dessert all at once. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I can do this. And I'm a vegetarian, so there's only 2 options. So I just ordered one of the vegetarian options, and I just picked the signature dessert. I basically got the signature dessert at every restaurant. But yeah, I didn't know that. Again, I don't know if other cruise lines do the same thing, where you just order all of your food all at once, and then they bring it out to you. Like, you don't get all your food at once, of course. Like, there's breaks, and of course, especially especially if you're in Arendelle or the Marvel restaurant, there's entertainment. So it's kind of broken up by the entertainment as well. And so, and I will say too, even if you get to the dinner late, they will still serve you. We got to one of the dinners like almost 15 to 20 minutes late, and they still served us dinner on time. Sorry to our waitress who probably was like going crazy in the back trying to figure out how to get us our food.
These people came late, now I got to get their order in.
Yeah, but they do that. And then you also have 2 waiters. So you have one for food and one for drink. And so you order all your food every single night with the food person, eat all your drink with the other person. And they also will bring the drinks out according to, so like for instance, he would bring out all the non-alcoholic drinks first, and then he would bring out all the alcoholic drinks as well.
That's like in a regular restaurant too. They do that.
So they kind of do it that way as well. And that's how we knew Shannon got one of the wrong drinks, because she got like a Shirley Temple. She got an alcohol beverage the first night, and they brought her a Shirley Temple, and she was like, I don't think this is the right drink. And then she said like they brought this out with a non-alcoholic drink. She's like, that's right, I know it's like probably not the right drink. And then anyway, she got her drink anyway, it was fine. But it was just kind of funny though in the moment. So, but all right, another thing also for dining, when you're in the dining, the characters will come and go very, very quickly. So if you want to actually meet a character, you should just plan to go to their scheduled meet and greet. Again, going back to the itinerary that you can look at, all the characters have lots of meet and greets throughout the day, throughout the evenings. So there's always a character meet and greet, and most of them have multiple character meet and greets too. I think the only ones who only have limited ones is some of the Marvel characters have limited ones, and some of the Star Wars characters had pretty limited ones. Like I think like Spider-Man only had like 1 meet and greet time there, and like Rey had 1 meet and greet time. But all the other princesses and the Fab Five, they have multiple times throughout the entire trip that you can meet them multiple times. Because again, at that dinner, if you're banking on like a character dinner like in Disney World, it is not the same thing at all. The characters will come to your table, but they are going to come to your table and breeze by and leave immediately. No photos at all, barely. Like they will talk to you for a little bit, but not that much. They do spend more time at tables that have young kids, especially if the kids are dressed up in those characters. So if you're at Arendelle, I would suggest dressing up your kids maybe as Anna or Elsa. They would spend a little more time with you. If you're at the Marvel restaurants, but dressed up as Spider-Man or one of the Marvel characters, they'll spend a little bit more time with you. But even then, it's not that much time. They're going to breeze in and breeze out, and you're not going to get any photos. So again, if you want to do a proper meet and greet, you'll have to go to their actual meet and greets. Now, also say too, when we went to so we had Arendelle first. We didn't know this was going to happen at first, right? So Elsa came over. She came by. The restaurant's loud, right? So you can't hear anything. She was speaking a mile a minute to us, said hello, said goodbye, left. We were like, what just happened? I didn't even get my phone out because I couldn't even take a video because it happened all so fast, right? Now, now that we knew this was going to happen, right? When Anna and Kristoff came over, I was prepared with my phone out before they came over so I could record the whole thing, so that I got recordings of them. And then when we were at the Marvel restaurant, when Spider-Man came around, a cast member came around first and said, Spider-Man's coming, but so you guys know, he's only going to be here for a little bit, so have your cameras out and ready, so when he comes by, you can take your photos really quickly with him. And so that, at least we got the warning from the Marvel restaurant. I don't know if we were supposed to get a warning for Arendelle and it just didn't happen. Maybe they just skipped our table by accident.
Right.
But again, that would have been nice to know, because when Elsa came and went, all of us were like, what just happened? Like it was just such a shock.
Like a wind.
Because again, they have to get to every table in a matter of like 2 hours. And especially for the Arendelle one, they're performing the whole time too. So they're like going to tables, and then going back on stage to sing, then going back to the tables, and then going back on stage to sing and dance. So it's like, it's a lot of, it's a lot. It's a lot for them to be hosting this engagement dinner for Anna and Kristoff. So, and I give them credit as well. They did a great job, honestly. So I know that must be a whirlwind of a night for them, but they all did wonderful.
Well, it's like being a bride and groom at a wedding.
Yeah. And all of that, they do it twice, remember? They do it first for the first seating and then for the second seating. So, all right. And now we're down to my final tip of this podcast, at least. I'll probably do another podcast episode another day of more tips, because even when I was reading this, I'm like, there's more stuff that I was thinking about. But my final tip is that you can leave. So Disney will tell you that on the last night of your cruise, you can leave your luggage outside of your cruise.
Every cruise does that.
Yep. And at 10:30, they will take your luggage and they'll bring it basically off the ship for you. And then when you get off the cruise, you will deboard according to group. So they will say, we're deboarding Ariel now, because it's a Disney character, of course. We were Ariel. They will deboard according to the group, so that when you leave, they will direct your group to like where the luggage is just going to be sitting, outside of the ship for you. But my main tip is that you don't have to do this. You can just bring your own bag off if you want to. And that's what we end up doing. We decided we're just going to bring our own bags
especially
off.
if you have a time frame.
Yeah. So if you have a time frame, and again, if your bags aren't really that big, like we really, we had our big bags with us, but they're really wheelable. That huge. Yeah. We could wheel them at least. We didn't have multiple bags or anything like that. We had like one bag each for the most part. So for us, it was okay that we decided to just wheel it off. It also meant too that we had more time on the ship to do stuff, because we didn't pack our bags until 1:30 in the morning. Right. So I did not start packing my bag until 1:30 in the morning.
Right. Also, you don't have to have a separate bag with the stuff you have to wear the next day.
Exactly.
Take off and put in the bag, and your toiletries and all the stuff. You can just pack it all in and leave. Right?
Yeah. So just to say that is that you can do that. A lot of people really like it because it is a hassle, especially if you have kids or like a lot of stuff that you don't have to bring your bags off.
Well, if you have duplicate bags too, you can always keep one bag with you and the rest of it goes out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But again, you just don't have to do that, is all to say. say. So it's just up to you. And again, they do deboard though by group. And I'll say the next morning as well, when you deboard, there is an option. So Marceline Market will not be open for breakfast, but your waitress will probably tell you the night before as well, like on your final dinner, they'll say, if you want breakfast, you come back to this restaurant, the restaurant of your final dinner, for a sit down breakfast, and they will bring you breakfast essentially that morning. I forget the times, but your waitress or waiter will tell you the times, of course. We didn't make it to the breakfast. We didn't wake up in time because we didn't go to bed until like 2 a.m. So we missed the breakfast. Sad times for us, but it is what it is. So all that to say is that, yeah, you can get breakfast if you want. And I know you can also request breakfast, like in like room service breakfast too, if you also want as well. But a lot of people say too, you can also just like request room service earlier and then maybe just keep some milk like in your little refrigerator in there if you just want to have some cereal before you leave. I just had a protein bar and I was fine. So, well, all right. Yeah. So it was kind of like 15 plus, little tips, random tips just for going on your first Disney cruise line, or Disney Wish, whatever it may be. Again, these were just random things that I thought about when I was on the ship that I didn't hear a lot of other podcasts kind of talk about. So I just kind of wanted to bring them up. And honestly, just another excuse for me to talk more about my Disney cruise.
Yes,
just because
she's
I had such a good time. And it was so much fun. And it was fun to relive a lot of these memories when I was going through this. But I would definitely recommend listening to my Disney cruise recap as well. Because again, I went over a lot of stuff in that episode as well. Literally day by day of what we did, what we saw, all the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like as much, or things I was confused about. So definitely recommend that episode too. All right, let's get into some Disney news. Now, we don't have a lot of Disney news for today's episode just because this is a very pre-recorded episode. But I would say the biggest Disney news that I'm going to predict right now that I don't actually have anything is that the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party will be starting soon. It starts usually in mid-August, I would say. All of the dates for Mickey's Not So Scary and the Oogie Boogie Bash in Disneyland have all been announced. So all those dates are announced. I'm pretty sure they're all on sale as well. So that'll be very exciting to see. And it's kind of wild that we're at the end of July right now. And, Halloween is starting, right? Halloween is starting real soon, everyone.
I know. It gets started earlier and earlier.
Yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, Halloween's starting soon. So I would say that's the biggest thing there. I guess the last thing is that Food and Wine is also still going on in Epcot. I was surprised that Food and Wine started so early this year, because in the past, Flower and Garden would go more into the summer and then Food and Wine was more in the fall. But instead, they ended Flower and Garden earlier this year to start Food and Wine a little bit earlier for Epcot, and that will be going further into the fall as well, which makes sense in the sense that Food and Wine, I think, is the most popular festival in Epcot, which for me, my favorite festival is Flower and Garden, but that's just my opinion. But Food and Wine is also going on in Epcot too. So yeah, so that's just two little tidbits of news for this pre-recorded episode. Now we can get into some Disney birthdays. There are no Disney birthdays, but we have two personal birthdays on August 2nd. It is Elvis's birthday. Elvis was our cat who had passed away actually recently. But Elvis would have been 2 years old though on August 2nd. It would have been his golden birthday. So happy birthday to Elvis, sitting on that rainbow up there. We'll see him soon. And then also on August 3rd is my parents' wedding anniversary. Yes. So happy wedding anniversary to you and Dad. How many years has it been?
34.
34 years. Does it feel like 34 years?
Feels like 50.
Well, happy anniversary to both of my parents as well. And that brings us to our final segment of the podcast, our Disney memories. Do you have a memory for today's podcast?
Well, when you're talking about cruises, I just remember I've only been on two short cruises. The first one, I was single, so I had a ball. But when you were talking about the restaurants and the eating and stuff, it just brings back my memories at the first cruise. We never made it to the restaurant for dinner or breakfast. We showed up for that last morning breakfast. The waiter looked at us and said, "What are you doing here?" He was like, "What are you doing here?" Because we never sat down to eat. We would just grab stuff off the decks that had like buffets or hamburgers and French fries or this going on or that going on, because we were constantly doing something else. Yeah. We didn't feel like sitting down and eating or doing anything like that.
No, I agree, because there's so much to do on a cruise ship that you are constantly
And the food wasn't that good on the cruise I was on, so it wasn't like it was enticing us to go eat at the restaurants.
I thought the food on the Disney Wish was pretty good, honestly, because I have heard that sometimes
it's a different kind of ship. Yes.
Yeah, and I have heard that on some of the other cruise lines, the free food isn't good, but then the paid food is very good because they want you to pay.
Well, back then, I think my first cruise, they didn't even have, I don't even think they had paid restaurants. It was just what you got for free.
It was still bad.
Yes, it was a Carnival cruise. It was, like 40 years ago. Yeah. So like they didn't have all that stuff. It was just
because now I hear some of the other cruise lines, it's like the free food's bad, so they want you to just go pay food for like the paid food or whatever.
I think we ate food the first night. The first night we ate it, we looked at each other and said, no, and we just decided not to. But the last day, like I said, we had no choice. We had to wait to deboard. So we said, okay, let's go have breakfast. And we all sat sat down. I got on a really great table with really great people. And when you were talking about all that, it brought back all those memories.
Yeah. No, so yeah, I thought the food on the Disney Wish was pretty good. Even all the dinners and everything was pretty good. And again, we didn't go to Paolo or Enchante, so I can't speak to know what the paid food would have been.
Right.
I'm assuming it would be very good because I know those are like, I think there's some of the, I think Enchante is a Michelin star restaurant. Like I think it's full on Michelin star.
Yeah,
so very good food, I'm sure, when you pay for it. I think the only food we did pay for, other than alcoholic beverages, we paid for the beignets at Tiana at the Bayou, which is one of the lounges, and we all got ice cream one night too at Joyful Sweet. So we paid for, I got the Moose Tracks ice cream, which is actually so good, I will say. And it's funny because sometimes I go through phases where I really love peanut butter treats, and I go through phases where I'm like, nah, I don't really care for like a peanut butter treat. But that Moose Track ice cream was very good. I would definitely suggest that one. And they have toppings as well, but I didn't get any toppings. I think because I had gummy bears in the room, so we went back to the room and I just put my gummy bears that I had on my ice cream. Yeah, but those are only things. But yeah, but I did think the food was really good overall. But I would say not all the food was good. There were definitely some flops in between some of the good meals for sure.
Well,
so
it's
again,
like
not
anything
everything
else. It's any restaurant. Everybody has a different taste, a different palate, a different, they can't please everybody all the time.
Yeah.
But like I said, my first cruise, there was no pleasing anybody anytime. It was not good food.
And then one other memory too is that, because again, you have the same waiter and waitress on Disney Cruise every single night. They come with you to all the restaurants. And again, you have the same person taking your food and the same person taking your drink. And they have it written down, of course. So they know your name. They always greet you by name. And so by the second or third night, Jeremy, who was one of our waiters, he was our drink waiter. He knew, he was like, oh, Sprite? Because every night I had gotten a Sprite. So I was just like, yes, like I'll have a Sprite. But on the last night, me and Shannon were like, let's get a Shirley Temple. So he was like, oh, Sprite, Amanda. And I'm like, actually, I'm going to do a fancy Sprite. I'm going to do a Shirley Temple. So here I am getting my fancy Sprite. And if I'm being honest, I kind of wish I just got a regular Sprite. A Shirley Temple is just a bit too sugary for me.
Yes, they do. They put the grenadine syrup in it.
Yeah, because a Sprite is already so sugary and sweet that with even more sugar in it, and I'm like, do I really need more sugar in a sugary drink? I'm like, not really. So I kind of wish I just got a regular Sprite. But it was fun to get a fancy Sprite the last night. Okay. So, all right, thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. If you have any questions about going on your first Disney cruise, definitely feel free to reach out on our social media, Almost Amanda X. I can definitely answer any question, but I'll say I've only been on one Disney cruise so far. So there definitely are a lot of travel agents and other, podcasts and people out there who have much more experience. But again, as a first time goer, I definitely say, like, if you want a first time experience, definitely reach out. We'll love to talk just about Disney cruises in general. I definitely feel like a cruise person now. I definitely feel like I'm becoming a cruise person. So I'm excited to go on more cruises in the future. Actually, so you know, Mom, our most listened to episode within the last few months is your Sorrento trip from Italy. So that's our most downloaded and most listened to episode.
I gotta tell you.
So I know the travel episodes are always like some of the most popular. So definitely reach out if you have any questions though about the Disney Cruise Line. We'd love to chat, and make sure you give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. But until then, we'll see you here.